Hi, and welcome to Relationship Spectrum. Thank you for joining me today on my third episode. I'm sticking with it, consistency. So I appreciate all of you who have been listening and been following me on my Instagram and my Facebook page. I really appreciate the support. I do look forward to improving on my podcaster skills, and I'm learning as I go along. So this is very exciting for me. My Facebook page is Relationship Spectrum Podcast. My Instagram page, Relationship Spectrum Podcast. So, just to recap, episode 2 was about the foundation of relationships. And we talked about that foundation being trust. So, went back, listened to the podcast, thought to myself, hey, you could have expanded on this, or you could have did a little bit better on this. So today, I want to go over a couple of things that were a part of episode 2 on trust. So at the end of episode 2, I said something and I was like, man, that could have been something we could have expanded and talked about more. So community, here I am, expanding on the topic of vulnerability. Vulnerability is considered a weakness. And why? Because defining it is like you're exposing yourself physically and emotionally to be attacked. So that is the definition. That to be vulnerable is to put yourself out there to be physically and emotionally attacked. More or less on the emotional side, that your feelings get hurt, right? Emotionally, you feel exposed, and if someone doesn't respond or maybe judges you, or judges you, yeah, that's the word. I like doing that, checking myself right in the middle of the conversation. So people begin to judge themselves. And then when someone else judges you, you feel hurt. But there is something about vulnerability that is really the foundation of trust. It is actually a building block of trust. It is required. In order for you to build trust with someone, you have to expose a little bit of yourself. It's almost like giving and receiving. So you'll give a little, and the process of giving is receiving. It doesn't necessarily have to be from whomever you gave to. In this instance, when it comes to relationship, it does. So you give a little, and then someone responds. Depending on the response that you receive, you go a little further in exposing yourself. But more likely, when you are exposing yourself or being vulnerable, you are creating a safe environment for people to share. And that takes a lot of courage. It really does. So to be vulnerable, and in over the last 8 years, we have heard a lot about vulnerability. One of my leadership programs that I attended was based on, and it actually was a personal development training, that I went to, and we worked with vulnerability and exposing ourselves and finding strength in doing that, strength and courage in doing that. If you want to know more about vulnerability, also Brene Brown has done work on vulnerability. You can look it up on YouTube. She has a book called Daring Greatly, and so you can definitely hear more about vulnerability in that way, or you can participate in a personal development, and I'm hoping that they are like the ones that I attended, and the one that I also do a little bit of personal development as well, so you can reach out if you like. The second point that I wanted to touch on in this podcast related to trust is that I mentioned in episode 2, you are the owner of trust. You are the owner of trust. And because you have ownership of that trust, you decide how much of it you are willing to give. How does that come into play? How do you make that decision? Well, if you look at trust is an emotional and a logical act. How this happens is trust is an emotion. And how you get to the point of feeling that you can trust is that you make a logical decision. You look at the probability of this person hurting you, or you do a quick analysis of the environment and you say, I don't think I can trust this. So it is really based on how are you going to feel trust is based on the logical determination that you make and you come up with as you are perceiving the situation. So it is emotional and it is a logical act. Once you have made the logical decision, then you say to yourself, I feel I can trust them. There were some things that happen. I feel safe when I'm with them. I feel respected. There's a give and take in this relationship. So, trust is happening with your input. And so that's why I say that you're the owner of it. I mean, no one else can be responsible for your trust. How it happens, when it happens, you are the owner of it. But I also want you to keep in mind, because you are the owner of it, that things may have happened that goes into my third point, that trust is fragile, and things may have happened that broke your trust and caused you to look at people and situations differently. And it also took away from how you see the world and how you interact with it. So that third point that I made in episode 2 is about trust being fragile. It is broken very easily, and it takes a lot of work to rebuild trust. That's why when you are engaging in a relationship that is trusting, because most relationships are trusting when you start. And I'm talking about every relationship that you have. There has to be a trusting component to it. If not, again, nothing will get done. So initially, there is a trusting component of every relationship. Even when you go to the car dealership, salesman and I'm the customer, you have to kind of trust what they're saying to you. And that's what gets you to buy the car. You make a logical decision, you make a logical analysis of it, and then you go based off of that. So there is trust involved in everything. How much trust is dependent on you and how you decide it. For some relationships, we give all our trust. Those are the ones that when we've given all of our trust and the trust is broken, those are the ones that tend to dictate how we see the world or how we get into relationships with the next person. Those are the hard ones. If you had been on my Facebook page this week, I posed a question of what relationship or what was the first relationship in your life that broke your trust? Surprisingly, and not surprisingly, many of the comments were the relationship with their parents. And in episode 2, we talk about that the window to the baby's world is through the parents' eyes. That's how they determine what the world is like, based on the parent. And then when we get older, there are things that we're in the child state. We learn a lot of the things. Our the main unit of our learning as we grow as a child into adolescence is our parents. We later get the influence. We do get the influence from school and our peers, but the most impactful one in our early years is the relationship with our parents. So I posed that question out there, and it didn't surprise me. It really didn't. I could have probably thought that there were my first relationship or my best friend did this. So, or the first one that broke my heart was my boyfriend, or broke my trust, not my heart. So I think when you break someone's trust, you also break their heart, though. So trust is fragile. But the other point to that is that in order for you to heal from being broken, you have to be willing to forgive yourself. It's definitely a process. You have to be willing to forgive yourself for what you did not know. I gave this person all of my trust. Yeah, because you didn't know it was going to turn out that way, or that was going to happen. And it was a big expectation when you give somebody your trust, or you get into a relationship with someone. There are these expectations involved. You walk in there to this relationship with your bag of expectations, and then you try to hand them over to another individual who has a bag themselves. Always call these a bag of shit. But they also have some expectations. And we're not really, although we're the only animals that communicate the way we communicate, we don't do it very well. We really don't. It may be clear in what I'm saying and I'm communicating with you, but there's a lot involved in communication that happens. You know that iceberg saying, everything you see at the top of the iceberg, but then underneath it, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that you cannot see? That is how communication works. there's all these underlining things that are happening internally to this person who you are communicating with. But if we were really good communicators and we get into a disagreement with a friend or someone we're in a relationship with, would it be possible to say to them, hey, I understand that you're upset, but what was your expectation of me prior to what happened? Being kind of clear, what are your expectations? You seem to be upset about the situation. What were your expectations? And then saying, did the other person knew that that's what you expected of them? So if we were really great communicators, that would happen. But because we're really not, that doesn't happen too often. We don't ever find out what another person's expectations are of our relationship. And that probably should be one of the first conversations we have. Hey, what's your expectation of me? Let me see if I can fit the bill. Because that would give you a clear idea of like, can I do this? Because people are a lot of work. Really, people are a lot of work. People ain't easy. And I will agree, I ain't easy. I'm not a walk in the park. And so, well, that's what my husband says. But I kind of believe him when he says that. I'm not no walk in the park, and I agree. I got my own bag of shit. And so, and sometimes it gets full and I don't know how to empty it out. So, I of course, when I walk in the house, I bring that shit with me. So when we think about communicating expectations, there are some expectations of trust. I expect you to always have my back. I expect to feel safe when I'm with you. I expect for you to tell me the truth. That's a good one, right? I expect for you to tell me the truth. But sometimes as people who care about one another, we get caught up in, could they handle the truth? Is that truth going to make the situation worse? Is that truth going to make them judge me or love me even less? So, but can I tell you from experience that the truth really won't do any more harm than the lie? Honesty, when they say honesty is the best policy, it really is. Withholding, especially when you're in a relationship, withholding, it really doesn't make a situation better. It just makes people realize that they can't trust you. I don't know if you agree with that, but I think truth and honesty and respect, if some of those components are missing, that it really does a lot to your trust foundation, causing cracks. So going back to forgiveness. First, being able to forgive yourself for what you did not know. We're not genies. We don't walk around with a crystal ball. You could not have known. You may have had an inkling, but you wouldn't have known, So start with forgiving yourself. It is so important to forgive yourself because what someone else does to you is rarely about you. But I like to say this. It ain't about me, but it is about me. You understand? Like, I cannot explain that. It is It is not about me. I know this, so I can come to grips with that component. But it is about me because that situation kind of caught me off guard, or that situation gave me some feelings. So it is about me. And because I took that piece of it and it's about me, I need to start the process of healing myself related to if it's about me, not about me. So forgiveness, key. You can also, after you forgive yourself, of course, rebuild the relationship of trust. You can do that. It'll take a couple things. One, it will take you to be consistent, having a little more integrity and follow through. It would also take you to be vulnerable and honest to rebuild it, and having a conversation and maybe some expectations. Or you can go back to the relationship with an understanding of who that person is and treat them accordingly. You could do that. You could do that. Doesn't have to be a big blowout thing. It could be like, okay, I got your number. Now let's cool. Because I really like being around you. I like hanging with you. I like doing this. I like that. There are some people that, though, and I'm going to put a though on that statement I just made. There are some people that you can forgive, but it's too hard to be around them. You haven't healed enough to put yourself in front of that person. It's still an open wound. That's why I say start with yourself when it comes to forgiveness. Start working through that process of accepting and understanding and some self-awareness of what happened. Again, this is a two-party relationship, and the other party is not totally to blame. You had your part. You got to take it. You had your part. It's a 50-50 deal. Or it could have been 80-20. Either way, you had a piece or a part in it. And you have to take responsibility for that. That accountability is going to help with your forgiveness. So don't act like it just happened. No. There were some things that happened in between. And you had a part. I don't care what the percentage is. I don't care if it was 90-10. 90% their fault and 10% yours. Take responsibility for that 10%. It is going to help you in your healing. It's all it takes. Is telling that story a little different with what your side of it, what your part was. I can give you an example. Let's say you're walking down the street, I don't know, and you see some things in the distance, something going on, looking a little funny, but you keep walking straight. And then when you get to the situation, when you get up to wherever you're going or near the situation, you find yourself in a problem. And you may have a physical altercation or somebody attacks you. You get in this whole involvement. Okay. I would consider that 80-20 or 50-50. I don't know. 50%. Take accountability for that story, because you're going to tell the story like this. I was walking down the street and out the blue, somebody attacked me and blah, blah, blah. And those things do happen. Okay. But how about if we told the story a little bit different, where we're the main character and we tell it like this? I was walking down the street and I saw something going on up there. And you know what? It looked kind of suspicious. But my nosy side in me decided that I wanted to walk up on the scene. And so when I get up there, I got attacked and I got beat up. Okay, so there's your story. Part of that story, you put yourself as a main character and you said, I saw what was happening. And I still, some little nosy part of me wanted to keep going that way. When I could have just turned back around and said, hey, ain't none of my business. I don't know if that was a good scenario, but I'm sure you get it. I'm sure you get it. I don't even have to keep going on. I'm sure you get it. That part of the situations that we're in sometimes, or most of the time, we have a part in it. Bottom line. Are there some situations that we may not have the part in it? Yup. But most of the time we have a part in those relationship situations. Relationships we're talking about. My example, I don't know if it worked well. It could have, but you get what I'm saying. I'm sure you do. If you don't, you can post and send me a message through Spotify or Anchor. So if you have something to say or comment, feel free to definitely comment, and I will get back to you. Long as it's not personal. Because if it's personal, like, oh, I don't like your voice, why you sound crazy, don't even bother, because I'm not going to even comment back to you. So, but if it's a conversation and I pretty much like communicating clear, then definitely hit me up. Okay? So, pretty much this is the end of the road. That last episode 2 was long. It was 40 minutes. I thought it was good. I mean, if you haven't listened to it, it's good. I mean, it's got a lot of good points in there, but I think there could have been an expansion. And the one that I really thought was important to expand upon was vulnerability, and how that vulnerability is required in order for you to build trust. And that vulnerability takes courage and strength. It's power. It's powerful. And we no longer have to look at it as a weakness. We expose ourselves, of course. But if I tell you my weakness and you say something about it, I already knew that. So how is it going to hurt me when you say it? That's my point. Thank you for joining me today. I appreciate the community that I'm building with you guys. I just want to let you know that the first 3 episodes I thought was important to kind of get us started. But the next ones, what? I'm going to have ordinary, extraordinary people that we're going to have conversations about certain topics in relationships. And we're going to have a good time. So I'm excited about what's coming next, and I hope you are too. So I look forward to talking to you more on Relationship Spectrum. I'm your host, NP Morrison. Bye-bye.